A bit about Service Republic, as Paddy mentioned, which is the unit that I lead in Cork County Council, and really specifically our kind of journey in design and trying to bring innovation into an organisation like Cork County Council as a local authority. So, so my name is Julianne, as Paddy mentioned. I lead this unit. We're called Service Republic. So something we did very early on was give our unit a kind of an identity, and that was also an important way for us to, to cement the change that we were trying to make. So we came up with the name ourselves, and I think it's good because it kind of encompasses what we're trying to do. It's about the public, so it's Service kind of Republic. And it's a nice snappy name as well. So we have an email address, servicerepublic@corkco.ie. If anybody wants to send me questions or anything afterwards, I'm quite happy for people to do that, so please feel free. A little bit about our unit. So we're a dedicated service design unit in Cork County Council. Now, we didn't start out that way. We started out looking at the digitisation of services, and really, I suppose the whole need to use something like service design is something that again evolved with the unit. We'd used things like lean, we'd used BPI kind of processes and procedures for our services for a while, even before the unit was formed. But one of the things that seemed to do was it might have led us to achieve efficiencies inside the organisation, but from the customer point of view, a lot of the time the impacts weren't really being seen at that side. So while we might be doing something more efficiently internally, from a customer's point of view, they mightn't see the benefit of that. So we felt like there was something missing, and service design certainly became, the means for us to deliver that customer impact. This is a timeline, it's a bit out of date now at this point, but it kind of gives you a sense of it has been an evolution, it has been a journey for us. Our unit, the main one highlighted there, our unit launched in 2017. We started, though, forming as a team in 2016 in response to a customer survey that was done the year before that, again, by the council. So, asking people what they thought of us as an organisation delivering services. And our chief executive at the time recognised that we needed to, look at doing things differently, working differently, delivering different channels for people. And so the whole idea of bringing a team together to focus initially on digitisation, that came about in 2016, and then we looked to, a process for improving those services, but in a very people-centred way, and that's how the service design aspect of our work came to the surface in 2017. And really, it has been the core of how we've developed as a unit since then. We were involved in a number of different global events and conferences, because I suppose in the public sector in Ireland, we would have been one of the first in-house service design units in a public sector organisation. So, we were at the centre of driving a lot of that interest and events that were held in Ireland. We tried to bring other public sector organisations into those too, and to spread the word, so to speak, about what service design could do. How service design became a thing for us was actually one of our senior managers went to an event, a service design event, and it was almost like a eureka moment for him. It was like, this is the thing that the organisation has been missing, and could we use this and could we do this? So that, coupled with that customer service review that was done, really kind of aligned a lot of things together for us early on. In terms of our own experience and what we've learned ourselves about service design, and you'll know this yourselves from your own, your own studies and just the sense you'll have about what it's about. It really is an attitude, it's a mindset. And from our own personal point of view, as a team and as individuals in the team, we've actually changed quite a lot over the last few years. Like, it's been a transformation for us as much as it's been for the organisation. So I think that's an important thing to mention. And it is definitely an attitude and a mindset more than anything else. And that customer survey, that research that was done that I mentioned, like what that highlighted way back, this was in 2015, early 2016, was that, you know, we understood the perception that people had of our organisation very differently to what the real perception was. So we asked people what they thought of us as a council. Like 70% of our customers thought, you know, were satisfied with us as an organisation, said we were professional, we were good to deal with. 70% isn't bad, right? So we asked our own staff then what they thought at the same time, what they thought the public would say. And like more than 70% of our staff thought they would be really negative about us as an organisation. So it was obvious there was that disconnect between us as an organisation and what people really thought about us. So, you know, it was important that we found a way to make that connection with our customers. So that kind of set the scene as well for what we wanted to change. So understanding when you're starting on any transformation journey or any innovation, what you think it is you want to change is important. Now, that notion might change as well as you go, but you do need a starting point, and we certainly had that with this research. Also, customers in that survey told us they wanted better access to our services, they wanted better communication during the service process. So, you know, they don't want to hand in a form and then hear nothing for 2 months until they're told they haven't got something or the request isn't successful or whatever. So they need interaction. And obviously we needed an online channel as well for our services, which we didn't really have early on. Yeah, and the public sector is a funny beast in many ways. People use this notion that there is a culture in the organisations in the public sector that won't allow change to happen as an excuse not to do things a lot of the time. I mean, we found that you have to understand what is it, when you say culture in a public sector organisation, what are you talking about? Most of the time people think you're talking about the people. It's the people who won't change, they'll resist the change. But actually, when we've been doing all of this work and over the last few years, what we found is that the thing that makes it difficult for us to change in the public sector isn't so much people. It's really, you know, we've got lots of old services and processes, systems that have been in place for a long time and haven't really been changed or modified or brought up to date. They're not fit for purpose anymore. And our people are trying to work in those environments and deliver the best possible service, but their hands are tied a lot of the time. And then one of the big things, of course, that's an absolute enemy of innovation, as far as I'm concerned, is just our hierarchical structures. And there's, you know, that's a thing that's slowly changing in how we work. It's definitely changing in Cork County Council, but across the public sector, that hierarchy is still a big issue. You know, the people who are on the front line and who are out there meeting their customers, who a lot of the time have the big ideas about how things might be improved and what we could do, they're at the bottom of that pile a lot of the time, the bottom of that hierarchy. And then they're cut off from other people as well, the way that it's structured. So, you know, the great thing about our service design approach and about design in general is that finally people in those places actually get a voice. We give them a voice. We listen to what they have to say and what they can contribute to the transformation and innovation that we're trying to drive. And that's a lot of the time where the big ideas come from. So that's the big plus about design thinking in general in any organisation. So yeah, so people aren't the problem. I mean, the culture of public sector organisations isn't riddled with individuals who don't want change. We've had nothing but positivity from staff we've spoken to or in our own organisation. They want change. They're the answer to our innovation and transformation initiative. Yeah, so that's just a key learning from us, and I think something that you know we're all very conscious of. Is very central to the whole design thinking philosophy as well. In terms of then design in general, I suppose another important thing to keep in mind is that we're all working in environments where, you know, there's lots of different ecosystems. Nothing is existing in isolation, and us delivering services as a local authority, like the place that's happening in, it's a very complex kind of ecosystem. Lots of different things interacting together, and just to get a kind of a sense of that, you know, I knocked across a study. I wasn't looking for this, but it was kind of an interesting one a few years ago, and it was in relation to digital champions. So what makes organisations digital champions? And it was this study that PwC did back in 2018, and it was actually a study that was done in the manufacturing sector. So it wasn't even a sector that was necessarily very relevant to my own, but what they described was very similar to this notion of ecosystems. You know, all organizations consist of like financial ecosystems, technology ecosystems, people ecosystems, all of those. And what they discovered in this manufacturing study was that the organizations that really became the digital champions were the organizations that understood that the people ecosystem actually underpins everything. So where people succeeded best in the digital space as well was where people were the focus of how things were done. Okay, and I guess even though that wasn't a design study, or it wasn't even a study for a sector that was necessarily aligned with my own, it still kind of really reinforced the message that people are at the heart of you know, innovation, and of successful innovation as well. So I thought that was an interesting one. From our own point of view then, how do you start something like this in an organisation like ours? Well, we were very lucky. We did have the support from the very top, from our chief executive as well, to kickstart this whole transformation processes in our own local authority. But how do you do it? What's the first step? Like, is there a recipe for how this needs to work? And really, it's not so much sometimes, I think, thinking about, you know, what you're going to do. It's thinking about maybe creating some conditions to allow something different to happen, or to allow something new to be done, to allow people to work in a new way. Now, what our senior managers did do, which was very important, was they asked themselves kind of questions around, you know, what support do people need to change things? So not so much what do we need to change, but if we were to support people to make changes, how would we do that? So give people some capacity, give them resources, then take away obstacles to change. So because we had support at the top, our chief executive basically, you know, drove this and championed this and said, I'd like this to happen, then that removes automatically a lot of obstacles in your organisation. It makes a lot of the naysayers, you know, step aside and allow things to happen. That's really important. So obstacles being removed for change. And then space for change. I mean, we really, as a unit, when we were formed, we were allowed to try service design. We didn't know that it was actually going to work for us when we started in the first place. But we were given the chance to experiment, I suppose, for the want of a better word, with it as a method, as an approach. And it really did work. But, you know, there was also, I suppose, the implication in that, you know, it might not work, and that's okay. So we'd be allowed to try it, and if it failed, that wasn't going to be the end of the world. So that's really important. So those kind of conditions for transformation and innovation are really important in an organisation. And they certainly kick-started things for us, for our team. Something I mentioned earlier too was about digitisation. Now, the digitisation of services really on its own wouldn't have been, I mean, it would have been transformation. It wouldn't really have been innovation that was happening in a lot of other places. But what digitisation did for us was it gave us something very kind of tangible, a very visible change that we could make to a service, and it was something measurable as well. And when you're in a kind of an old school organisation like a local authority in the public sector, that kind of traditional organisation really relates to those sorts of things. The tangible, the measurable, the data driven, those are all things that public sector really, you know, is comfortable with. So that digitisation initially really was the thing that allowed us to make a small change in one area and then make people comfortable with that and then try other things. So it kind of became like the foot in the door for us as regards innovation in our own organisation. And it's you know, it's something to think about. What could that kind of Trojan horse for innovation be in your own organisation? It mightn't be digitisation, but it might be something else, some other small, seemingly, you know, innocuous change that might just set, you know, a kind of a trigger for other changes. And before you know it, you've achieved something really quite significant in changing how your organisation works or in moving it in a new direction. So that was an important lesson for us as well. And you see, it's easy for me to say this now looking back. What I would say is, at the time, I don't think we necessarily recognised that that's what was happening, but now that we've been through it, we can certainly look back and say that's actually how it worked for us. It wasn't always something that we were aware of at the time. So, you know, it's good to share this so that other people might maybe twig onto it a little faster than we did, but it was all good. It all worked in the end anyway. So we did our online services portal, which was the big, you know, the big deliverable in digitisation at the beginning. And that really has, that's been really successful. I mean, the appetite for digital services is huge, even more so now in the last 12 months with, you know, with more things needing to go online because of the COVID pandemic and everything. Like, alternative ways to deliver services is just so important. But it has been a real kind of success story for us. And, you know, it's just, again, it's one change leading to another. And because we were a team that was brought together with three, I'm going to talk about these kind of three key capacities that were brought into our team. Like, I can really see the value of having those working together in a unit like ours as well. So we have the design and innovation aspect of our work. So that allows us to determine what are the user needs. You know, what are the things that people want in services? What are the things they want in policy and strategy? Whatever it is we're looking at, you know, putting people at the centre of that. But then the digital side of it is very powerful when you can deliver that. So when there's something you can digitise, when there's something you can use technology to innovate through and to change, that gives you that aspect of the change, and that's crucial. And then obviously when you have that digital platform, you also have a lot of data. I mean, I was at an event recently enough where somebody said that services were kind of the data engines, if you like, of our organisations. That's really true for us as a public sector authority. It's vital for ongoing transformation and innovation that we understand what the data in our services is telling us too. So, you know, we have definitely got the qualitative aspect from our design work, from talking to people, from getting their insights and actually just literally listening to them and hearing what they're saying and bringing them with us through the design process. But then we have the quantitative information too, that really important, you know, data from our services. And what's that saying? We need to understand what that is telling us as well, and that's just as important. So we're a really small team. There's 5 of us at the moment. It's a 6-person team, but we're getting somebody new in soon, so that'll be great. But we have that capacity in this team of, you know, in all of those areas. And I have to say, having those things together in one unit is just really important for us. It's allowed us to do things and to make progress across the organisation in ways we probably couldn't have otherwise. That table, just roughly, you can see it there, I pulled it in there earlier on today. It just shows the change in demand for online services. So between even 2019 and 2020, massive increase in demand for online services from customers, and massive increase in uptake of the online channel as well. So, you know, this isn't going away. This is the way things are going to move. And that's not to say that we don't look at every other channel, because we do. That's the power of our design approach, is that, you know, we don't just look in one channel when we're making a change to a service. But it's just interesting. That's really driven a lot of the work we've done for the last 12 months. And obviously good design is so important for digital services too. And we're kind of seeing the benefit of that good design. So we allow people to rate our online services, and of those that bother, so we've had like 4,718 when I looked last there, like 94% of the ratings are 4 or 5 stars. And that really is important, again, to feed back into the organisation that this is the impact of how, you know, this is what design is doing for us as an organisation. This is what good design and good digital services can do. So managers need to see that. They need to see the impact of what you're doing. And then customers tell us as well. So we also allow them to, you know, leave comments about our services. So it's nice to have the graphs, but it's also nice to have the insight. You know, those two things together really do complement each other. So this kind of fills it completes the picture of our services. And as I said before, any change drives more. So that's really just an important takeaway, I think, as well from our own experience over the last while. And it has been, like, in terms of design and how we've used it, it's changed a lot over the last few years. So we did start with, you know, digitization and then design of those digital services. And we moved even beyond that then into, you know, designing the context of services. So, you know, running design sessions with key stakeholders like our PPN, that's our public participation network. So it's a big group of over 900 community and voluntary organisations around the county. And they have a committee that you know, represent those groups to the council and interact with the council. And we have Age Friendly, that forum as well, that platform. Coughlan and Oak, which is like our council group for young people. So there's people from kind of secondary school age would be involved in that. And we've actually run design sessions with all of those different groups just to get a sense of what it is that they're looking for from us as an organisation. So that's about not specific services, but looking at the context. What are those groups telling us? So designing the context and then moving past that to strategy. So I'm going to mention in a bit more detail the work that we did on our corporate plan. So designing our corporate plan, actually using a design approach to that. And then ultimately, that's all about cultural transformation in our organisation. So, you know, a real, you know, permanent shift in how we're working, how we engage with our various stakeholders. And that's something that hopefully we're a good bit down the road in now. So, yeah, so this is something I'm going to talk about. So way beyond individual services and designing those, this is something that back in 2019, we were drafting our new corporate plan. So the corporate plan for the council is a 5-year plan that really sets the high level objectives for what the council will do and the work of the council over that time. And our chief executive, again, you know, being really, in fairness to him, you know, a driver of this whole approach, said, you know, we need to kind of get a sense of really what people want from us as a local authority. So why not? Let's use this design approach to the plan itself. So we actually did do that. And so we used a design thinking process, I suppose, to go out there, to engage with stakeholders and to feed that into then the development of our corporate strategy for the council. So that was certainly a novel approach to doing that in the public sector in Ireland. And how we did it was we started by asking people for their values. So it was going to be based around the values that people had, because one of the things that we understand is that if a strategy or a plan like that doesn't resonate with the values of the people that it's all about, you know, it's never really going to succeed. So what we wanted to be able to do was build the plan so that people would really see their values throughout it, and then they really have a stake in it, and then they really help you to deliver it, because again, it's about getting everybody on board for this. So values being important, you know, influence our behaviour, kind of shape our culture, inspire us to action. And also there are values at all different levels. So there's the individual ones, there's organisational ones, and then we really do know that transformation is possible when our individual and organisation values are aligned. So that's important. That's an important thing for us to know. And how we did it, just going through the practicalities of how it actually worked. So we went out to, we love Post-its in our team. I'd say we've got cornered the market on Post-its at this stage. But we went out and we had workshops. We had literally, I'd say we had, I should have the number at hand and I don't, but we had loads of workshops across sectors with staff, business, special interest groups, across a range of all of our stakeholders really, you know. Community groups, citizens, the rest of it. And what we did in the sessions we ran was we went in there and we asked people what mattered to them. So we started our workshop with that question, and some people sat there very bemused, looked at us and said, what has this got to do with a corporate plan? Because obviously, you know, it's not immediately obvious to people maybe what you're trying to distill when you're asking that question. But actually, once you get people talking about that, they're very happy to tell you what matters to them. And they're very happy to tell you, you know, what are the things that make their lives easier every day and what do they enjoy? And what are the things that make things difficult? What are the challenges? And one of the things that our managers were worried about when we started this project was that we'd basically opened the floodgates to a complete whinge fest across all of our stakeholders. And I have to say that, in fairness, even with that in mind, they still allowed us to do this and to take this approach. But what was really interesting was, although some people might have come there with some frustrations to vent, right, they never really did that without also saying, like, they'd start a sentence like, this is really frustrating and I really hate that this happens, but it would really be great if. So like there was always the but it would really be great if piece at the second half of the sentence. So they weren't really just telling us what the issues were. They were also proposing, fielding some opportunities and giving us ideas about how they could be helped. And the really important thing as well about the way we went at this plan is that we put staff very central in this too. So it wasn't really just about what we were going to do to deliver for, the people around the county. It was also equally focused on how would we enable our staff? What were the things that staff were worried about? What were the opportunities there? And you really can't deliver a corporate plan effectively without, having the people who are going to deliver it 100% part of that and on board with that too. So taking that approach with staff was very important for us as well. But we did end up with thousands of post-its, literally thousands of post-its. And at each workshop, we built a wall where we put, what people had said on the wall, and we allowed people to go up before the workshop finished, scan through the post-its, and they could, if they were worried about something, they could take it down, or if they wanted to reword something. But, we presented what they'd said to us back to them, and that was really powerful because then they understood that we'd actually listened to what they'd said in the session. And, there was a lot of kind of excitement of, oh yeah, I said that and that's up there and somebody else said that and they're agreeing with what I said. And, it was a really interesting way to present the outputs of the workshop back to people at the time of the workshop. And that was an important tool. So what I guess we also found was the workshops themselves were an important way to make that culture shift kind of happen. So for the first time, people were actually being asked what they thought, and everybody was invited. Like nobody was excluded from the opportunity to go. So that was a really important thing in itself, regardless of the outcomes of the workshop or the outputs. Like we had a synthesis session after each workshop, and we tried to distill what were the insights from each, what were the opportunities, and we did this as a team because obviously you do need that group think around some of those outputs so that it's not just your perspective. You could have a few voices there saying, yeah, I think this is a theme or this is jumping out, and then the challenges as well around that. And what we ended up with, I suppose, was identifying, as with the design experience that we had, identifying patterns from what people had told us and themes from what people had told us. And those things then actually became our corporate plan. They formed our corporate plan. So the values that emerged out of our sessions are ones that I suppose you would find in a lot of organisations and ones that are dear to many people. But again, having those at the start of your plan, having those kind of front and centre, that's an important thing, and that kind of sets the tone for what way your plan is going to be presented after that. The other thing we did, because again, it's about understanding what people need to feel comfortable with this approach too. So we were able to take the kind of qualitative information that that people had given us in sessions, in workshops, and we were able to present it quantitatively back to managers. So these themes emerged, and there were lots of these in this area or this sector. This featured very highly for this sector, and it was kind of graphed, and there were charts, and then there were quotes, with it. So how you presented it back, that was important for us to think about as well. So It really resonated with the senior managers when we were able to go back to them with this. So suddenly the kind of the fluffy approach of, asking people what mattered to them and, what made them feel good each day when they came into work. When you have an output like this, it's something that they can really, feel comfortable about and feel like, yes, this kind of means something, this is important. So that was just another important lesson. How you present the information that you get from your design approach is also important to think about. And just generally other insights, I suppose, we should never fear engagement, and we are getting over that fear as a local authority, definitely, but it is a bit of a process. But again, that the sessions on the corporate plan just reinforced for us that people are so grateful for a chance to be heard. A lot of the time, that's almost, 90% of their battle is getting someone to sit with them and listen. Our language and our engagement has to fit. So who you're talking to, your stakeholders and who they are, you have to be very conscious of that. Like for our internal sessions with the likes of our finance directorate or a session with Coughlan and O, so the young people, we can't kind of use the same language when we're engaging with those two different groups. And we've got quite good at understanding that. And even though, the public sector is kind of notorious for the lofty, wordy, technical language, and it's almost like it's not of value if you can't throw in the key buzzwords and things. But the reality is, when you're doing something like this and you're running your design sessions and you're doing your workshops, you just have to be so conscious of how you're going to communicate in those sessions. And then obviously strategy and policy, while a lot of the time people think these are just documents that are drafted and they sit on shelves and no one looks at them anymore. Like when you bring people into the process of putting it together and people really do see themselves in the document that's produced, then they matter, and they do matter to people. So hopefully our corporate plan is a document that actually matters to people and people who've been involved in generating it, all the stakeholders. This is just another chart. I should have taken this out, but it's just again a way of presenting thematically back to our internal staff, and in particular managers, that these are the different opportunities that emerged across the organisation in different directorates, because we were actually able to break it down to that extent too. So that kind of meant there was something in it for managers across the organisation as well, and that's really an important output for them. Then I guess tying back, this comes back to the BI and the data side of things, tying back the outputs from the plan into something that we can connect to the work that we're doing in the council as well. So, it's a plan that's actually meaningful. So what we've done is we've mapped the main themes, the objectives in our plan to the annual service delivery plan objectives of each department in our organisation, so that they can see each year when they're doing this is how it's delivering on this objective or this theme, or this is how it's actually, delivering the plan. So that connection is real. And when you have data, I guess you just need to exploit the power of actually showing people what the value of something is. And certainly we're just at the beginning of this, but business intelligence is an area that's just going to get more and more important for us as an organisation. I'm sure it is across the board in many other organisations as well. Yeah, this is just a summary again of some of the things I've said. So people transform, not technology, and we've definitely learned that. We've also learned that when we were talking to people in our workshops, that lots of people, like, innovation's really everywhere, and lots of people are doing exciting and interesting things in their own little areas, but it doesn't always get to the surface, it doesn't always get highlighted. But being able to find a way to recognise it across the organisation, to kind of connect people together who are trying to do things differently, allow things to be copied or expanded, and then showing the impact. That's really how innovation is going to take hold, I suppose, in our own organisation as a local authority. That's our experience, certainly. This is just a quote that our team in particular like. It comes from Cormac Russell, he's just an advocate of this asset-based community development approach, which I've mentioned before, but I haven't mentioned to you today, but it is an approach that looks at ways that communities can be empowered to help themselves. And you start by not looking for the challenges or the issues that you need to address. You actually start by looking at the assets that a community has, looking at the things that are strong out there. And I think you could bring that approach into everything, actually, into your own organisation too. What is strong in your organisation? What's strong in your team? What's strong in yourself, actually? And, you know, use that to benefit and to innovate and to drive change, rather than focusing on the negative. Probably all do with a bit more of that these days as well. In general, I guess, from a public sector point of view, we have definitely got a challenge in that we're in an ever-changing environment. Our ability to transform ourselves is going to be key to you know, us meeting that challenge and succeeding in innovation using design. Recognizing and integrating innovation when it happens, that's so important. I did mention that there, and that is true because it is happening everywhere. Building relationships and empathy as well. So, like I said about the workshops, it was really great to have a chance to meet so many people. Like, from the point of view of my own team, I think the fact that we got to sit down with such a broad section of our own organisation and meet people and talk to people, and you know, we made a kind of a connection, and people even in the workshops themselves told us that they don't always get a chance to meet each other, and they don't always get a chance to share ideas. So, you know, that relationships and empathy are such a powerful way to drive innovation, and design is all about building those as well. And it's so important that we do that, and that's how innovation and design will succeed, I think, in organisations like mine, and probably in all of our organisations. I'm hoping this video is going to play. I'm also hoping you're going to be able to hear it, because there is a little music over it. It's not that you need to hear the music, but it looks a little daft without the music. So here's hoping the music will play. I'm gonna give it a go anyway. It's only 2 minutes long or 3 minutes long, so fingers crossed. Right. Hopefully that played for everybody. Yeah, so really, I guess at this point, I realised I actually spoke at a rate of knots and I didn't even give anyone a chance to jump in with a question. So if there are any, I'd be more than delighted to take them. And as I said, you can contact me at that email as well if anybody wants to do that at any time after this. We're always delighted to get new insights and views from various people.